Hello viewers, we are here once again. Now this time we are here for the task 1 technical discussion with the pseudocode and the requirement from the aspect that might be used in exam from the examiners for the questions. Thank you. Let's start. This is computer science paper 2 pre-release material for May June 2019 for zone 4 paper 2-2.
And we are going to do the technical
discussions. Yeah. So as I said, that task 1 is for the sellers, but beneath it, it's not just that. We have to set up all the variables, arrays, and to initialize them. Apart from initialization, we would have to input the data in those arrays for the 10 items. So let's start. Task 1 is having 4 operations.
Okay.
Task 1 operations, there are 4 operations. First one is declaration. Declaration is something like finding space, available space in computer's main memory and reserving it so that we could use it later in a way that while the program is being executed, no other program or any app can have access to that space.
Okay.
So declaration is for the data structures. In our syllabus there are 3 data structures: constants, variables, and arrays. Constants are the data structures which once are made, they do not get changed during the execution of program.
Okay.
So let's start with the constants declaration. Constants are memory places. Once they are made, they cannot be changed. So we would have 2 benefits of constants. Number 1,
Okay.
constants, unlike variables, once are declared, can be changed. That is the first advantage of it. Let's say that we have a value which we know that it will not be changed, like government tax rate or pi. They never get changed during the execution of program, not even accidentally. Once they are made, they are fixed during the execution of program. Secondly, constants help to write robust codes. For example, in this particular environment, we have at least 10 items.
We at least need to have 10 items.
10 items for auction. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I have made this constant with 10.
items. Okay.
Yeah, this is total items.
Okay.
I'm talking about this robust programming thing. Robust program. How do these constants make this program robust? Let's see over here. Cambridge might ask you during the exam that there are not 10 but 20 items. In that case, you would not have to actually visit all the places to make it 20, because this 10 has a significance for, let's say, it will be the upper bound of arrays. It will be the upper bound for the loops.
Okay.
It will also be used in conditions.
Okay.
So in our program, in a way that we have used it for how many times? 15 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for arrays. Then for loop, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. We have used it 15 times. What does that mean? If we would not have this constant, we would have to visit all those 15 places every time we have to make a change, because that change would not only bring the change to the array size but also will bring the change to the arrays and conditions forward.
Okay.
Alright, so constant is a good thing to be used, and there was always a question about constant, that why do we use constant. The constant is made for something which we don't expect to get changed during the execution of program, and then we will also be using it for arrays, declaration. We will also be using for our loops, and it would have a wholesale effect. So ease of programming.
Okay.
Secondly, we have variables. Variables were never a concern during the exam. CIE never asked for the declaration of variables. So anyway, if there is a question there are types associated with the variables. Declaration is to reserve a space and name it with a type. Yeah.
Add one thing for our listeners that Sir Zafar is not only right now discussing about the technical aspects of the pseudocode of the PRM, but he is also letting you know about the expected questions that might come. So if you're listening, you also have to pay attention in this way, that these kind of questions will come from arrays, from variables, and from the constants as well. So please continue.
So declaration is to reserve a space. Alright, so we have, let's say we want to declare a variable I of integer type. These two slashes are comments. Whatever you write after these slashes does not mean anything for the computer. It is for our own understanding. When we look back at the code after some time, we should have an idea that why we have written and what were the logic that we wanted to. So if we want to leave any comments there, we can always leave that comment with two slashes. So this is the declaration command declare in pseudocode, and we want to declare 1, 2 or 3 variables of the same type. Okay. Alright, so if there is just one, we can just declare one variable, and if there are more, we can declare more variables of the same time. Now declaration of array. Declaration of array is a bit different. In declaration of array, you first, after the declare command, you put the name of the array, then a colon, and then you specify that this is an array with the lower bound 1 and upper bound 10 of type string. This is how we declare these. Sometimes array can also be declared like this. This would also be enough. So it is your choice, viewers, that whether you like to declare array in this way or declare array in this way. Since this is not very much clear, but it is part of the syllabus, so can you use it. But I, as a teacher, would actually recommend to use the whole declaration syntax, since it makes it clear that we are actually declaring an array.
Okay, and it is also clear for the data type, like.
Yeah. This does not tell about the data type as well. So afterwards, declaration of arrays. The second operation is initialization. Initialization, why do we need initialization and why do we call it initialization? Initialization is an act of assigning the very first value after the declaration of any array or any variable. Constants do not get initialized, since constants cannot be changed once they are declared. Okay. At the time of the declaration, constants actually take their values and they never get changed afterwards. Okay. So constants are declared this way. So now if we are declaring variables, we have to initialize those variables as well. Every variable would have its own value for initialization. For example, all of those variables which are number type, like integers, reals or currency, they will all be initialized to 0. String and characters are initialized to null. Okay. And boolean values are always initialized to false. Okay. Until or unless you have some other motive, we initialize to futile values. Futile values are these, just those we just discussed, 0 and false and null. Okay. So before we go any further, let's look at the pseudocode. After constant declaration, we declared 7 arrays for keeping the data. Once we create these array, they will look like this. These are the arrays which got declared earlier here. This is item number array. It starts from 1 and ends at 10 of type integer, and then item description, item reserve price, bids with their respective data types. So if you could visualize, these arrays will be made this way. They all are placed alongside each other. They all would have their lines, and these lines will be treated as the record for one item. Okay. This is called index. This is index. This is all index. This is index.
Index
at
of any array.
Any array. At index 3, let's say item number 3 will be telling the number of item. At index 3, item description will be telling the name of the item. Item at index 3, reserve price and number of bids and highest bid, and if it is sold or not, and which buyer have purchased it or not. Okay, so item number is integer, so it will be initialized to 0. Item description is a string, so it will be initialized to null. This is called null. Item reserve price is currency, so it will be initialized to 0. Item bids are integer, so bids will be counting how many bids were placed for this particular item, and highest bid is actually the amount which it got bid for, and the highest amount. And item sold would be boolean, and boolean by default they get initialized for false. And then item buyer number, since it will be integer, it will be initialized to 0. So after the declaration of constant, we would have one constant and 7 arrays of different type, and then we would have 2 integers I and j. I have used it for index over here, and then I have another already found boolean variable that I will be using for searching later. So let's talk about the initialization of array and variables. What is initialization? Assigning first value to the declared variable or array. It's like the computer's memory, the main memory, it is an open place. Any program that was previously loaded, when it leaves the computer's memory, it does not cleanse the data it was holding there on its way out, nor it is done by the operating system. So what happens that whenever we declare an array or the variable, we actually reserve a space from the available space. That reserve space that we have just reserved for our variable or array might have the data from the previous program. That data for us proves to be the garbage, so we have to get rid of it. So the first value that you assign to any variable or the array will actually be used for the removal of that garbage that we might have acquired from the previous program in that area which we have reserved for it. So initialization, we have to initialize variables like these. Since I, j and k, they all three are integers, they will be initialized to 0. Remember, instead of the arrow marks, I have used equal to sign for the assignment. Assignment is always from the right to left. So this 0 will be assigned to I, this 0 will be assigned to j, this 0 will be assigned to k, and this is the initialization for variables. Okay. If we like to initialize the array, we don't have just array for one location, we have arrays for so many locations. Let's say I want to initialize an array, I would have to initialize every single element of this array. Alright, so if I will be initializing, let's say I have made my array as a string, so naturally a string will be initialized at null. So I would have to individually initialize every element of this array which I made for upper bound 10. So I would have to initialize every single element of it. But there is an advantage attached with this this array thing, and that advantage is using a variable as the subscript or the index. Let's say I have got a variable I make it 1, and then I write my array I is equal to 9, null. In that case, since I is 1, I am actually pointing to this array element. If I is 4, I am pointing to this array location. So this is a good idea to use this I as a counter in the loop and initialize whole of the array like this.
Okay.
Since we know the size of the array, it would be a good thing that we use a count based loop for, and we, in every count based loop, I will be increased by 1.
Okay.
So when I will be 1, my array 1 will be initialized. When I will be 2, my array 2 will be initialized, and this way this would go from 1 to 10. And conveniently, since we might have this constant, we will be using constant over here instead of 10. Okay, so if I've got all these array needs to be initialized, I will be initializing them together inside one loop. Okay, that is how it will be done.
So does all the arrays need to be initialized? Or?
Yeah, every single thing apart from constant, whatever it is, variable or the array, they all needs to be initialized first.
For example, in previous programs, we have seen that for example, if you're using a total variable, you need to initialize it. But for the variables that you are, using for the input.
Yes, all of them. See, we actually at O level we avoid telling when to initialize and when not to.
Okay.
So we just make it a rule of thumb that to initialize all of the variables.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true that those variables which are part of the input, they do not need to be initialized, and those variables which are part of the loops, for example count based loop, they do not need to get initialized, but for keeping it simple.
They do ask us such questions, so we can tell them, okay, you can do that, but just to keep things simple, you initialize all the variables.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Alright. So the first thing you have to declare, second thing you have to initialize. So let's say our loop goes from 1 to total item. Since this total item is a constant, it means that it is from 1 to 10. So item number 1, if let's say for the first loop I would be 1, so item number 1 will be initialized to 0 since it is integer. Item description will be initialized to null, it is string. Item reserve price 1 will be initialized to 0. This way in every loop we would have first position of the index. Example, when I will be 1, all the arrays in the first index will be initialized to their respective default initialization values. When I will be 2, second place will be initialized, second element. When I will be 3, third element will be initialized. So this is actually the position after this loop completes. When this loop gets completed, this will be the position of our array. All elements of all of the arrays will be initialized to their default values. Now this is the situation. All arrays are made, means declared and initialized, and they are standing side to side, and they are with each other in the memory, declared, initialized, and ready to be used. Now after initialization of all arrays and variables, we will have to input two arrays. Since we input values to all of the array item together, we never, by the requirement of our pre-release material, we hardly input to scattered element or one element of the array. We mostly, whenever we input the values to the whole array. So what we do, we actually call it populate. Why do we call it populate instead of input? We call it populate because we are inputting to the complete array, not just to one position. So how do we do that? Let's say I put for I is equal to 1 to 10, and then item number I want to input to this. So how would I do that? First I'll write input command and the prompt and then whatever the input that you will make will go to item number 1. Afterwards, input and the prompt and then we have item description array and the input will go to ith location, which let's say is 1, and then we would have third input enter item reserve price and the input will go to item reserve price ith position, and that is, let's say for time being, it is first position. Next, after this population of array, we would have situation something like this. If you could recall from the visualization of input, let's say when ith location was 1, in item number I entered 5, in item description I entered A, and item reserve price I entered 10, and then here next will go control back to 4, will make I2, and then we will be adding data to this. Then when I is 3, we will be adding data to third element of all these 3 arrays, and that is how we will move on from ith location 1 to ith location 10. After the loop finishes, the data that we would have entered will be inside the first 3 arrays this way. This is just for your visualization. Now, by the demand of task 1, it says that the seller placed their items in the sell room with a unique number attached to each item. This uniqueness means when you are going to enter a new item, the item number that you are entering should not be present in this array already. It should be unique. So what we do, we will first take the input, then search for that input in this array, and if it is not found, only then we will be entering or accepting that value and entering to the array. So let's see first that how this searching works, and later we will be discussing that how to make that search to our for our validation for the acceptance of uniqueness check. So we have got 4 operations. We learned about declaration, then we learned about initialization, and then array population. Now the 4th part starts, and that is array linear searching. How linear searching works? Linear searching is taking one input and looking for that input throughout the array. And if it is found, we have to report it. Remember, we are searching only, we are not doing anything else, we are just searching. So what happens, that first we have to have a variable of type boolean. I named that variable as is found, and I initialize that variable to false. Then I input which item number I want to search for, and I took that input in search value. Then I traverse the whole array and check that at every location if item number would be same as the search value. If it is, then I'll make is found true. What does that mean? Initially, as we know that we have made this is found false, if after going through this whole loop it remains false, it means that we don't have that item present, and during the execution of this loop, if we would have found this search value, the is found variable would already been turned to true now. So once we get out of this loop, we can check if is found is still false, it means that item was not found. Otherwise, if it is now true, then we would have to put that item is found. Alright, so this is how we search the array. Let's see this how it works. We are entering few values to the array, and we have got an array for 10 items here. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now it is asking us for the value that needs to be searched. If I put, let's say 4, it would say that 4 is found. What is actually happening? Let's check it out. This console.read line should be understood as input, and console.write line should be understood as output. So let's see how the whole thing works. I entered these values to the array. Now we have got this is found variable which is set to false. Search value will be taken from the screen. I want to search for, let's say, 5. Now search value is now 5 here. When this loop starts, i's value is now 1, so item number 1 is equal to search value 5. No. So this will not make is found true. It will go further. Next will make I2 and send the control back to 4. Now item number 2 is being checked since I is 2. Item number 2 is 2, so it is not equal to 5. We go further, make I3, check if item number 3 is equal to search value 5. No, item number 3 is actually 3. And then next item number 4 is 4. It is not equal to search value, so this will now go forward. Now since item is 5, item number 5 is actually 5 and the search value is 5, so it will make this is found true. So this will go further, and since during the loop search is found is now true, since is found is now true, this part would not work. Rather, on the screen what will be written? That 5 is found. So that is how search works. Now we will use this search for our task 1 in the form of uniqueness check or existence check. The strategy would be to take one input in a separate variable, let's say I number, and then search for that I number throughout the array, and if it is found, we would have is found true. we will ask our user not to we will tell our user that this item already found, so enter a different item number. So what changes we are going to make there? Those are simple. We don't need this message now. All we need to do is, we have this is found, we input the value, we look for that value throughout the array, and afterwards, let's say this is a validation done using repeat and until, and this validation will be called existence check or unique check. Until is found is equal to false. So this is very simple. When the loop starts, is found is made false, we input a new value. If we don't find that value in the array, we just get out, because is found is still false. So when the condition in until is true, we get out, and we will assign the value that we have input to the array element I. Otherwise this loop will never let our user enter the data which is already there. So let's see how the whole thing is done. This is fourth operation, part 2. This is called existence check validation, and let's see how we have done it over here. So we have an outer loop which goes from 1 to 10, and then we have to input in three arrays at every location. So our outer loop I would go from 1 to 10. When I is 1, these two will be accepted without any validation, and item number should be checked. So when I is 1, now we don't have is found like we have here, rather we have already found, which is false. Repeat starts, input the item number in INO, we looked for the whole, we should have a different variable now to look through the whole array. If item number is found at any location of the array, then already found will be made true, and this true will not let user go outside this loop. Once user enter a value which is actually unique, user will go outside the loop, and as soon as user go outside the loop, that is actually the conformity that the value which is entered in item number is actually unique. If it is unique, that will be assigned to the item number 1 location, let's say this, and then other two inputs will be made to respective arrays, item description and item reserve price. So let's see how the whole thing is working. This is task 1. You need to visualize it again. Item number 1, item description A, B, C. Item reserve price is 10. Item number 2, X, Y, Z. Item reserve price is 20. If I enter item number 2 again, it would not let me go out. This is because I was actually, when I was taking input, I was taking input in I number, input this item number, and if item number is already found, as in this case it is found already because this value was already entered, this would not let me go out, and it is asking me again. This until would have sent the control back to repeat, and it is asking me again here. So if I still enter, let's say 1, it won't let me go out, and it is asking me again. But if I enter 3, it will let me get out. So this is for the discussion of task 1. Technically, how to deal with it programmatically and what are the technical aspects for it. So task 1 says that for every item in the auction, the item number, description and the reserve price should be recorded. The number of bids should be set to 0. There must be at least 10 items. So we have this. We declared 10 arrays, 1 constant, 2 variables of integer type and 1 variable of Boolean type. We initialized all array items, and after initialization, array items look like this. They all are initialized to their expected values. Afterwards, it says that to input data for every item number, description and reserve price. So we have this loop for it. All the data at all the locations in item number, description and reserve price are entered. Afterwards, it says that in description over here that these item numbers should be unique, and it says that the number of bits is initially set to 0. Since they are already initialized number of bits, they are already set to 0. This completes the requirement of task 1. Thank you very much. Watch our next video for the technical discussion of task 2.
This is the end of technical discussion of PRM task 1. And stay tuned, stay connected. If you have any question, feel free to
any
ask.
queries, just please feel free to ask from me, Sir Yusuf or Sir Zafar Ali Khan.
In the comment section. Thank you.
Thank you.